Y'all, I forgot that I wanted to play Metal Gear Solid. And I've never gotten to play Metal Gear Solid Delta. I need to tell you all about my dream of playing the entire Metal Gear Solid series. And now, oh, good morning, Nixie. Nixie, I recognize you. I saw your name on a comment in my most recent video. It's a very sweet comment. But good morning, good morning, good morning. We'll be getting started in just a minute here. So very, very lovely to see you all. I'm going to try to start doing some of those more encouragement type audios every single Friday. So be on the lookout for those. We're going to be putting a little bit more structure to some of my posts. Anyways. I could have made waffles. I forgot I make waffles in the morning. Oh well. I'll just have to wait until later. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody slept well. Didn't stay out too late. You know what? Some of those audios make me tear up as well. Because there'll be sometimes some of those words that I write just kind of hit home a little bit too much. Especially being on apps to feel numb. Thank you so much for those follows, sweet Siren. Welcome to the menagerie. I mean, the reason why I make those is because I've been in places where I wish that I heard some of those things. Where my days are just not going as well as I want them to. And that I know if somebody told me the things that I'm saying now, it might help a little bit. But yes, Nixie, I did like the message. Nixie Ravenwood. You don't need to apologize for being late. You never need to apologize for being late. No, thank you so much for the beds. So, one thing I want to talk about really quick. It turns out that Metal Gear Solid, that new one, is on sale. So Nixie, I took a look at your profile. Any good message I take a look at, or anyone's name that interests me. Sometimes I like seeing if I can meet cool new VTubers through my comments, and a few times there has been. It's just the morning. My mornings are always nice and chill. So, for those of you who are new here, hi. My name's LuckyJene. I'm a gambler, a writer, and a soon-to-be villain. And I keep my lovely chat in my basement. At the beginning of every stream, I go through, congratulate those who got first, second, and third, and then I read through all of the stream check-ins so I can say good morning to everybody, or hello if it's the afternoon. And if we ever go full-time streamer, I might do a evening reading book stream and then say good night to everybody at the very end of the stream. Wolf, you're totally fine. Don't you worry. Well, Goblin, eventually I will also offer coaching, so if you ever want to hit me up for coaching, let me know. Alright, so let's see, where are we? Oh, I see. Congratulations, Wolfos, on getting second and first. The kind of greed only known about in the Bible. And also, congratulations, Spooky, on getting third. Oh, is Pinky not doing okay? I'm sorry to hear that, Pinky. I hope you feel better soon. One second. All right, where were we? Okay. Good morning, Katamia. Thank you for that check-in. Good morning, Spooky. Thank you for that check-in. Good morning, Stellar, Jazzy, and Tasha, and Wolfos. Good morning, Ocean, and Galactic, and Necro. Good morning, Ariana. Good morning, Sucky Beach, Amelia, and Jivitz. Good morning, Ray, May. Good morning, Onyx, Asher, and Cinder. Good morning, the Soulkeeper, Sakuna, and Amelia Platter. Good morning, Dumpster and Rookie's Rebellion. Good morning, Roxanne and Looney and Margarita. Good morning, Goblin King. Good morning, Kagome. Good morning, Maddie and Nanashi. Good morning, KC and Spooky and Mobear. Spooky Nami, that is. Good morning, Miriexel. Good morning, Hush. Good morning, Julia. Good morning, Nixie. Good morning, Lily and Solian and Spell. Good morning, Bella Beauty, Poison, and Kakashi's wife, Sarah. Good morning, Cade One. Good morning, Poppy Sprout, Caitlin, and Shiny Whatever. Good morning, Lotta, Lunar Rain, and Sinful Microwave. Good morning, Sweet Siren. Thank you so much for the follow, and welcome to the menagerie. Good morning, Zeka the Puppy, and Pandragon Nelia. Good morning, Kitchen Witch, Nixtama, and your Lady Death. Lovely name. Thank you so much for the bit, Sarah. I really do appreciate it. Good morning, Hugh, or Hue. Good morning, Vanya. Hope you're doing all right, Vanya. Good morning, Danny Cat, Pinky, and Liz 3141592653539. Good morning, Hue. Thank you for the head pats. Well, I suppose we are going to be doing the rest of this in this accent. Good morning, Sweet Siren, and good morning, Via's Fog. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, Tasha, that is very adorable. Good morning, Ginger Cat. You will have to be patient. We will get there eventually, Pinky. Well, the Southern did not get redeemed early enough, so that's what happens there. But it's lovely to see all of you. It is always so very lovely to see all of you. So, I have been trying my hardest to take care of myself. I did still hurt my foot, and it still hurts, and I'm not exactly sure what I did to it. But I suppose we will find out eventually, yeah? Here this is. Narada. They are. One day I'll figure out what happened to my foot. I got some very lovely rest. I'm honestly a little bit concerned about how well I slept. Because I woke up feeling very nice and like I slept perfectly and there was not a single issue. And this is very concerning because this never happens. This never happens. Something is wrong. There's something else wrong with me. Has to be. That is the only way this makes sense. So maybe that's my paranoia, you know? Who knows? But yes, so there's that new Metal Gear Solid games that I might get. We'll see what I can do with that. We will get to Sazens very, very soon, so don't you worry. Where is my brain? Thank you for the stretch. Okay, lovely. So we have some options here. Now, I guess we could just do some Minecraft and build and progress that way. I was also enjoying playing the modded Minecraft a little bit. Thank you for the hydrate. We have a lovely cup of tea. I'm not exactly sure where I feel. We might just do some more of some modded Minecraft just to kind of chill for now. Flip a coin. Carmia, heads or tails? You get to decide today. You are my deciding factor. Heads? Okay. Unfortunately I didn't think this all the way through. I was just like, you know what, heads is Minecraft. They're both Minecraft, it does not help me. So, I guess that one had no modifications, so I suppose that's just Minecraft. Sometimes we don't think. Sometimes we don't think at all. And I never think. Alright, now we can do the summon. Let's see what we got here. Right. Out of the two options, Minecraft and Minecraft, what are we gonna do? I think we might do a little Minecraft. Mo-bear. Mo-bear sounds like a delicious, delicious fruit. I would love a mo-bear. Something very, very sweet. Now, if you were to eat a mo-bear, chat, what flavor do you think it'd be? Peach flavor? Well, remember, a mo-bear tastes like a mo-bear. Court of the Lamb is a bit too, is mo-bear's feather peach flavor? Okay, but we need something that's not a real fruit currently. So maybe like a slightly sweeter peach? Like an altered peach. Not saying we should eat mo-bear. Don't eat mo-bear. Unless it's moe-bear. What do you mean, Kamiya? Lemon peach hybrid? A lemon peach hybrid. Ooh. Well, Kamiya, list me off the games you end up getting. Alright, we ready? So we have a little bit of a problem here. Do y'all know what that problem is? I'm glad we have a compass. Last time we were playing... I'm not lost. I have a compass, so I can find my way back home. But last time we were playing, I kind of just walked in a random direction. Do I bone? No, I don't have bone. That's disappointing. And so, you could really be anywhere right now. By the way, we're playing some Christmassy lo-fi this morning. So I hope you all enjoy the music. Let me know your vibes with it if you think it's good. Do I play Bedrock or Java? I play Java. I've always owned Java. Not that this is my first copy of Minecraft, but I've been having it for a while. Oh, Maddie, we were playing modded then. We're playing vanilla hardcore. I'm such a good donkey. But one day we'll make a modded Minecraft server. That'll be during the fundraiser goals. I actually have a buddy who might show up on stream, which I still need to plan that out with him. and he runs servers all the time. So I might actually have him run a few different game servers for us. Shoot. Oh, it's been a while since I played hardcore. I don't have all my stuff set up. This Minecraft run? Get home. Right now the goal is just to get back home. And you know what? That would be very, very cool, Carmia, but I don't know how possible that would actually be. I mean, like, maybe I could, like, build some of the places in the world, and that would work. But yeah, definitely. Now let me build up my little stacks here. Thank you for the stretch. I mean, because, so the problem with my lore is the different superpowers, there's nothing that really makes each of them, like, related. So there's, like, no shared powers. Yeah. Alright, do I have it? There we go. I have a stack of terracotta. That should keep me going for now. I don't need no bones. We will be doing an announcement about Gibbets's mod roll soon. No, don't worry, I won't be... I won't be giving too much away, don't you worry. Do I have any wood on me? I ain't got no wood. Gibbets. Gibbets. I do not, silly. Why? Or does it just happen? Should I give you a random tidbit of lore today? I kind of talked about it in the chat. But Gene's hair is not actually red. Gene's hair is made red, and his actual hair color is black. Nope, not from old age or stress. I have not Sagona, but that sounds like a lot of... That sounds pretty good, actually. No. You should be doing red. So Gene's hair is red. Gene's hair is red when you look at it. But his hair is not naturally red, is what I'm trying to say. His hair is turned red due to another situation, an external factor. And that if that external factor were ever to end, his hair would turn back to black. Power stuff, related to power stuff. And back to the normal voice, because I forget I'm doing Southern sometimes. not Super Saiyan mode. More like Gene had black hair until one moment in his life, and is now affected by something that makes his hair always red. Luck. It is luck related, and that's all I can really say. I wouldn't say cursed. Not a curse. But so you will eventually see Gene before and Gene after. And before Gene looks like a very, very tired kind of college student vibe. Like a man who never drinks enough coffee. I also, the reason why I smile and laugh so much is also part of lore. Bye, Ginger. You be good. Sleep well. No, technically, any writing is making up things as you go along. But all of this has already been planned out. This has been written in detail. I have all of the power branches written out, as well as lore on where the powers came from in the first place. I have lore working on before and after this change in history. We have some of the major players written out, as well as a lot of side stories have been planned, including the cop who's a villain, the discovery that powers can be transferred. Oh wait, that might be speaking too much. Never mind, don't worry about that. Nothing, don't worry about it. Me? I'm from America. America. F yeah. I'll say, this is just what I'm gonna let out. There is the Gene primary lore, but my world ended up being a lot more developed than I had planned on it initially being. And it got me really excited about a lot of like the from such a cute little puppy. But yes, so the world ended up being very nice, and I had to figure out certain concepts. So I spent a lot of time thinking about side stories and side plots that kind of talk about how a world is different when anybody can end up with powers, you know? And because there's powers that are very specifically villain focused versus hero focused, what does that result in? Because I'm such a good doggy. Because imagine you have a job your entire life, right? No, don't talk about it. Imagine you have a job your entire life helping people, right? But you do one thing bad. You have one slip up, and suddenly in everybody's head, you become like a figure of evil. Well, with the way my powers work in my world, there's a high chance you could develop a power, a villain power, based on that. And so suddenly you're a person who's been, taking care of orphans your entire life, with the ability to explode things, with the urge to explode things because the villain powers enforce this kind of need to abide or to satisfy them. How do you live with that? Because once it's there, once those powers are there, they take root. They physically can change you. That's all. Carmia, this is such a minor plot point that it's not even worth talking about spoiling. No, yeah, I like the ending. It's fine. Trust me, trust me, trust me. The character that I just mentioned doesn't exist. It is just an example, as is this lower example. Carmia can fight me. I need to check on the chickens. Give me a second. Chickens, are you still here? Yes, you are. Produce eggs, please. Oh. On Minecraft? I think I need to start trying to figure out how to find netherite armor. I just don't know how you find netherite armor. I think you need netherite scraps, right? So I'll probably make another shield and head to the nether. Let's start working on finding netherite. My age is a secret, because I'm a content creator that will need to live forever. Which, to be fair, I will probably one day do like a whole age reveal thing. This is only because there will be a separation between Gene the character and Gene the content creator when I do eventually do like more public things. This is why. So this is just to let you all in on a little something. I will one day get a 3D model that I will use as LuckyJene the character and story. And I will do like live action lore and acting segments in character. At that point, I'll probably make a more distinction between me and character. Very much, if you ever look at Code Miko does do a separation between the operator. Thank you for the hydrate. She does a separation between the operator and the character she does when she streams. And so I might do something like that eventually. But for now, all of it's under wraps. I guarantee I'm over 21 because I've legally drank on stream. Yeah. Because the character will actually age at a different rate than I will, but it will age. Oh, no, you won't, Spell. Gene, the content creator, will stream still. There will be, like, there's gonna be lore streams, and there's going to be non-lore streams. So it'll probably be like a 20 or like a 50-50 split or a 75-25 split. Yeah. That is why I will have two separate models. I'll have my live 2D model and my 3D model. Alright, what am I doing? What am I doing, yo? Yeah, Twitch does get grumpy talking about ages. And also, VTubers last a lot longer. when the ages aren't known. Do you not have a roof in your house? Totally have a roof in my house. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not gaslighting you at all. Oh yeah, you will still get wacky things like Gene Day. You'll still get crazy stories from my life. In fact, you'll get more crazy stories because guess what? I'll be doing real life things. I'm so excited to do actual, like, content creator things. Do you know how good, like, I talk about this a lot, being a full-time content creator. And I know it will happen one day. I'm working to make it happen. If I need to sell my car, get the cheapest thing I can get, cut off any additional costs, I will do it. My life as a full-time content creator one day is going to be incredible. Because I will finally be able to do all these things that I've been like putting off. Because I needed to make sure I had enough money to, pay bills and stuff. And I'm just, well, no, I have thought about selling my car just as a, I don't necessarily need it. And if it means that I get a chance to live my dream, I would so much rather do that than ever, do anything else. Okay, idea. So I know illager places give me totems of undying, right? And if we go to the nether, there's a chance we'll die. So what I think I should do is maybe I'll go hunt down an illager. Oh, woodland mansions? Oh, wait, we have a map for a woodland mansion. Okay, so here's the plan. Let me get a diamond helmet that I can enchant because we're not going to the nether yet. Then we can finally find the woodland mansion. And then we can go out and see if we can find... Where did I put my lapis? Then I can find the totems of undying. Or do some raids. Yeah. But I've always wanted to find a woodland mansion, so... Valid. Yeah. Oh, Momo, good morning. I'll be seeing you later. Sounds worse than I meant it. I just mean, me and Momo hang out sometimes. What was I saying? Yeah. You saw me because of eating a lemon? Yeah. Yeah, that happened. Get some memes. No, thank you for the lurk. The drapes. I already have I do have ominous potions. They won't come here, but maybe I need to go to a villager. There we go, that's nice. Yay, look at me. I'm such a good doggy. I saw somebody's comment on one of my videos about how their sister is obsessed with my stuff, and that she always says that she needs to go check on her father every day, and it was really adorable. Also, people have been leaving fan art in my comment sections on like TikTok and stuff, and it made me feel so guilty because I found one recently that was like not that old. But I was like, oh no, I've completely missed this. I'm so sorry. No, get some sleep, iguana boy. Alright, who wants to be this diamond sword, by the way? I need to name the diamond sword after somebody. Please raise your hand. Where's the name I see? There we go. This sword is now called Rookie's Rebellion. That is a fantastic name for a sword. And we will be naming other armor pieces after people as well. So let's see who we have. We have Asher. We'll do one more. Who was next on that list? Spooky was the next one. Oh, hey, Moro. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Spooky. Nice. And we'll name other pieces of things later. I can always just name a Goblin King. I like naming things after random people. It's fun. I'll set up a randomizer later. Okay, let's see. What am I looking for? I'm looking for something. Wood. There's my Savannah map. Woodland Explorer map. There it is. Well, I'm glad to have you here, Moreau. It's always lovely to see you. You're an OG. Big OG. Okay. Don't need the diamonds to mine. That was me making noises. Vocal stimming. All right. And away we go. How high can you jump? Wee. Jump. Yes. Jump. Yes. Lance. Lance is not named. Oh. I do recognize the name. It's so annoying. Not annoying, but it's always funny. Y'all use different names everywhere, so it's so hard to figure out when it's y'all or somebody else. Yeah, there we go. There was a village around here somewhere. I just can't remember where. Oh, what weird dream were you having? And if I was a village, where would I be? Maybe that way. I know there's a village somewhere around here. I appreciate the Lexies. Hi, Shanks. I've always wanted to play a goblin in D&D. I've always wanted to play a goblin in D&D. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But we're gonna summon evil to the villages. When was the last time y'all rollerbladed? Because Moreau just reminded me that rollerblading exists. I used to love rollerblading. Been a while, Malin. 3 years ago. Actually, you know what? So I bought these. I used to love to rollerblade, okay? Max is like, oh, I want a roller skate. And so she bought these, not inline skates. She bought the ones that have the box shape. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, I'll buy those too, because I used to be really good at rollerblading, and so I can help you out. Well, the box shaped skates, the one that are in a square, are so much more difficult to ride. And like when you get used to the inline skates, those box ones, because they're almost like skateboarding, like trucks, I think they're called, because they shift when you like lean left and right. The entire thing moves, versus inline skates, which is just a straight line. Yeah. Yeah. Inline skates are a little bit easier to use. Alright, it's time to bring evil here. I'm sure they'll be fine, right? Thank you for the headpats. Evil, I summon thee. What's your important question, Stella? I don't have a lead. The horse might vanish. That's okay. Where are you? And I'm so sorry. I see them. They are coming. Does he want to be a VTuber? All he needs to go is go to booth.pm. But I am teaching some people currently how to do it. It'll be a while since I do have a spot open for coaching. But if he follows me on the Twitter and comments on the coaching post, that's the quickest way to get my response. Do be careful with Etsy models, because a lot of them are resells of models from other websites. Scrandle. Scrandle's a lot of fun. Booth PM. It's a website. It's a Japanese website that's used a lot to sell models and stuff. They are what are they called? Pre-mades. Where'd they go? Well, this is frustrating. Yeah, I've run into a lot of issues with Etsy because also they'll offer backgrounds. Some of the backgrounds I've even used. And it turns out that they are AI. Do I need a computer to stream with the VTuber model? You do not technically. What you could hypothetically do is something along the lines of... Wait, why is the raid HP bar filling back up? What does this mean? Yeah. Oh, multiple stages. Oh, that's fine. Okay. My brain is gone. What were we talking about? Oh, VTubing. So what you could technically do is you could just get VTube Studio on your phone, and then you would stream from like Streamlabs app, and you just share screen to the VTubing app itself. Now, you would only be able to show off the VTubing app. You have to do everything in the VTubing app for any of your backgrounds and things. So you'd need like another device to actually monitor chat or anything, which is oftentimes how I do it, but it is possible to do. What doesn't matter, spell? What doesn't matter, spell? Where's the next level of the raid? Is it not coming? Oh. Yeah, I'll be removing that soon. If you do want to do like a lot more stuff with VTubing, I do suggest a computer. Yeah. So the way that I VTube is I use Live Studio, or I use VTube Studio on my phone, and my phone connects to my computer. In fact, using an iPhone front camera, like the one that's the face camera, is one of the best tracking methods out there due to the way iPhone handles facial tracking. So I would actually suggest using an iPhone over a webcam. Oh, yeah, you could definitely do it on a gaming laptop if you want to do VTubing. A lot of fun. You can use an Android, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. It has to be above a iPhone 10. iPhone 10 is going to be a cutoff. That works. Chat, the rain doesn't want to come. You can always use a Samsung as a camera. There are apps for doing that. And you can use, I think you can use the Studio, VTube Studio with a Android, but I know it's not as easy of a process. I guess chat ate the Raiders. The Raiders aren't coming. Maybe they'll come tomorrow. It depends on the Samsung. But I mean, if you have a webcam, if your choice is between using a webcam you already have or a Samsung you already have, webcam's going to be a little bit easier. So, if you want to do gaming in VTube Studio, it will matter a bit how old your computer is. You can work around tech a lot. But it will take some finagling to get right. If you have an older computer, mine's a very nice computer. An older computer you will need to kind of like optimize, you know? There's ASMR. You don't have to game at all. You can do ASMR, you can do just chatting streams. I think I took everybody's bed last time I was here. And I'm now regretting this. Yep, I'm very much regretting this. But yeah, I mean, like, take Fillion for instance. Fillion is definitely not good at gaming and does a lot of, like, just chatting content with VR. You actually don't even need VTube Studio. There are some people who just use VR chat and do live streaming that way. And then you can get free models. All you need to do is use, like, the virtual camera in V2 in VR chat. You're good to go. There's a bed. What's up, Sakona? How you doing? Burn, baby, burn. Really? This early? Alright. I can do that. Well, there you go. I'll just wait for the rest of the stream. I did start a raid, but no one's coming. I want to kill them. I do not feel bonita. No, right? Well, you have to remind me after stream. Like at a normal hour, not after my evening stream. Where's the raid? Is the raid broken, y'all? What's this do? Well, it said there was no more. I killed all of them. Do you think they may be like they're somewhere else? They just never got here. Do I have a bell? I do not have a bell. Thank you so much for the Wadim. Nap time, sweetie. In this video game, you can be raided by the pillagers, and we're trying to kill the pillagers. You still have at least half an hour before my stream ends. Probably not, Stellar. Good chance I did not. Thank you for the bits, Smokey. Well, I mean, they're not showing up, so it's not a point for me to stay there. MVN. I don't know what MVN means. Oh yeah, I saw that. Sometimes it gets stuck on the ground. No, y'all. It said there was 2 pillagers left. I killed both the pillagers, and then there was no pillagers left according to the thing. So they didn't show up. See, it's still there. It just like recharged the health of them. I mean, I don't know where else I could really look. Oh, that's what you mean. The bell shows where they are. Okay. You asked if I have a bell. No, Gene doesn't have a bell. Why would I have a bell? So what is it supposed to do? Yeah. So yeah, just to confirm, I'm not crazy, right? I think the raid's just broken. Thank you for the follow, Tiramisu. Yeah. But I got no totem, so I'm very disappointed. So instead, I think we're gonna go find like a villager hideout. Do illagers have to come from the a place, or do they just randomly spawn when you hit the button? Yeah. I didn't look at the effect. I mean, if you notice, the effect is gone after the raid, so it just shows a raid. Was the health of the raid supposed to go down every time I killed one of them? Well, you know what? Let's see if we can find the map. I'm gonna pick a random direction. Why do I need a bed? Oh, for sleeping during the day. You're right. I'll go kill some sheep for you. I will murder sheep in your name, God mia. Thank you for this check-in. you for the likes. There you go, all these sheep died for you. I want lemons for Christmas. I'll take lemons for Christmas. Be fun. All right, here we go. Random direction, straight line. That's a cutie amount now time. Isn't it good, Norwegian wine? Da 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 da. What should I say? Bing, 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 boom, 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 okay. I'm gonna find them all. Thank you for the follow, Jay Shepherd. Seven Nation, I'm good and hold me back. Take a run down. Back and forth through my mind just like a single river. I play bass to that song even though it has no bass in it. Did you know that the White Stripes has no bass in it? Which makes it my least favorite band. I'm gonna make a giant square, by the way. I'm gonna keep heading out in one direction until I run out of food, and then I'm gonna head a different direction. And I'm hoping, within hope, that somehow this will allow me to find this place. Don't know if there's any way for me to expand this map at all. Been in love with a girl, fell in love once and in love completely. She's in love with the world. Everybody has to have a licky mount. It's legally required. What? Who's depressed? I ain't getting. I take my meds. Da 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 da. Hello, Alex. Good morning, Jay. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. The best way to get a song out of your head is to play it and sing it all the way through, because it puts an end point on the song. Hello, Alex. Go watch Les Miserables. Such a weird name for a movie, Les Miserables. I can't believe they made a movie called Les Miserable. Like, everybody's sad the entire time, so it's wrong. It's a lie. I think they would name it Less Miserable. It should be called More Miserable. What? What do you mean that's not how you pronounce it? What? How else would you pronounce it? Like, shouldn't it be a movie about getting happy if it's less miserable? Thank you for the hydrate. Yeah, Less Miserables. About a guy who's no longer sad, right? Like, he gets out of prison, so... like, he's not sad anymore, that's the plot? Les Miserables? That's like like the potato chips? Lays? Oh, we're bringing snacks into this. I thought we were talking about the movie about a guy who gets out of prison and is happier now. I would never joke. Not about something that Kanami is talking about and seems to have an interest in. I would absolutely never do that. I know, but it seems like everybody else is having an issue with it, which makes it just as fine. Oh, it'd be no fun if Kamiya had actual negative reactions to any of my stuff. I would never want to cause Kamiya some actual distress, just mild annoyance. But the game is fun. The back and forth will always be fun. I rage bait just for the love of the game. Yes, no, I know it's Les Miserables. And I know it's about French oppression and a person going to jail just because he stole a loaf of bread to feed somebody, and they're still like, well, you shouldn't have done it. He's like, okay, yeah, but my family would have died. They're like, yeah, but like, you shouldn't have done it anyways. Idiot. let your family starve. Which vibes, honestly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for some reason, Kami won't let me call him Oni-chan. Was it One-chan? Thank you for the stretch. Carmia-san. Ooh. Mm. Mm.
In this video, I'm going to show.
Give me a second. Okay. Okay. Name of the headpants. I'm looking up how to expand the cartographer map. Not the cartographer map, the woodland map. Okay, that's doable. What can I say? Ooh, I'm such a silly little maid puppy. There you go. Okay, this should work. Let's see if this works here. Oh, that just duplicates the map. You know what? I've already expanded it as much as I can, apparently. Wow. Okay, wow. That sounds rough, Stellar. It's very rough. What am I doing to mess with you? Yeah, there's a dot at the bottom of my corner. Oh, cara mia. I, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. But your name is X, Y, Z, A, B, C. That would be lying. No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. Welcome, Jake. But you will have to remind me. Because I will forget. Alright. There's been no change in the map so far. It is now time to choose a different direction. Yoink. Nada. I like the snow biomes, I get it. But I also like a challenge, and it makes things just slightly more annoying. I'm out of tea. It's a little sad. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I like that too. I know there's like game modes that people play on Minecraft that are like, hunt down people. And I've seen one where somebody was building traps in powdered snow. That was really cool. Oh, Bobby. Such a good little Bobby. Well, so that's the thing. Eventually, hypothetically, if I go in all 4 cardinal directions, I will have to see something showing up on the map eventually. But I don't know how big this map is, so... My current theory... Oh, actually, you know what might work? Which we'll have to try out. Here's the idea. Imagine if I build an underground, nether thing, and then I pick a direction, and I go as far as I need, and make another nether portal, because it's gonna let you travel even further, and I can triangulate where the thing should be. That might be my only option, really. Just to build another portal. Maybe the hydrate. Well, it might not be this woodland. Because my dot's still not showing up. My dot still has not moved at all. Yep. Alright, back to the open sea we go. When we'll stop, no one knows. Don't need chat. It's crime. Today's Saturday. Today's Saturday, right? Today is Saturday, right? Okay, good. Yeah, we're off today. I do have a appointment to keep all day. I sure hope it's all day. So I won't be able to stream endlessly today. I'll probably head off at my normal time. But I'll be heading off at like exactly the 2-hour mark instead of, other things. Thank you for the stretch. Yeah, today's also a cleaning day, even though my foot hurts. Before I let this place get too messy. It is what it is. Is what it is. Yes, I will be complaining about my foot all day. It hurts. It hurts a lot. I think I know what happened, though. I think what must have happened was I took a little slide in the snow, and I think I probably just pulled a muscle in my foot or something in my foot. Something tore, something did something. Okay, so here's the thing. As long as I head in either left or right now, eventually there should be a change on this map. Unless I'm heading exactly away from it, Is the only situation that could be happening. Kamiya said north. Well, I don't know what direction I'm heading. So what if I'm heading south? There's no sun, Kamiya. Oh. Got it. Head up. I'm lost. Alright, well, I'm gonna wait for the sun to start setting so we can figure out where we are. Oh, I refuse to play with coordinates. Yep, the sun is directly above me right now, though, so I can't really tell which way it's going yet. Okay, so that's gotta be west, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, that's west. So if that's west, that's north? No, that's north. Okay. Yeah. I guess I've been heading in the wrong direction. Thank you for the follow. Welcome, Neko. Wait, so you said you head west, so what if... Elliptical, I do not use coordinates. That's what we were just talking about. I refuse to use coordinates. Because it's hardcore mode. You gotta play hardcore in hardcore mode. This is the first time I've seen one of these up like this. Well, we're not doing this. No. Where's my boat? No, that was weird. Yeah, I mean, y'all are all valid in the way you play. I would never criticize you for how you play. That's fine, Stellar. What is that? What is that? Why does it look like that? What is this? I have never seen a structure like this before. There are so many drowned. I just want to steal some of these. Welcome. No apologies for being late. You know it's not the end of the world if you're late, right? Like, my stream is still gonna be here. The only person you have is you. Valid. Well, that's why they have the new compass system. You don't even have to be here. I'm happy to see you all, don't worry. But you owe me nothing. Valid. What are we doing science about? I look village. What is this? Why are you dark? Why do you look like this? What is this? Oh, it's an upside down ship. That's kind of cool. Got me. I'm gonna start streaming an extra late stream that you can't make. Speaking of, by the way, I was recently approached about doing a collab on the 11th. That will happen at 9 p.m. my time. Because I got invited to a game beta that hasn't actually even released yet. I'd be one of the first streamers who got to play it. And some people have reached out to me and being like, hey, do you want to do this collab with us on this day? So that's an indie game, so you know it's not super crazy, but it's still cool, you know. I appreciate the request. So yeah, we'll be adjusting our time schedule to better fit the other people. Which means I might do another stream on that day. I'll post about it in the Discord when we do it. Thank you for that, Trey. Yeah. I mean, it's either going to be just catch the tail end, cut of me. There's no good buildings here. This town sucks. East, west, north. Yeah, I know that a lot of people won't be able to attend it, and that's totally fine, y'all. Don't be for Wumbo. Alright, chat. Do you know what I want to do? I want to watch Legend of Adventures clips with y'all and just laugh at them. One of my favorite ones is like, you're just upset at me because I know which way west is. It's like, okay, show me. Well, it's this way. Alright. Now, but now where is it? Oh, it's this way. And now where's west? Oh, it's this way. The character in the show or my favorite person of the show? I really do like Bitsy, but I also like Booker because like people play off Booker a lot and it works really well. So I think Bitsy is just one of the funniest characters. But that actor plays so much, like plays so well. His characters are just fantastic. Torbeck is goofy. I do like Torbeck because I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, my favorite's Torbeck." I do think like Torbeck is funny on his own and is not necessarily the best to play off of. That would be Chuckles the Clown, the Hell Knight. Hey, Carnia. Are you telling me to go northwest because I'm in the bottom right corner? Are we sure this map is north and west? Like, is this, if I move up, is that going to be the right direction? So I could be heading in the exact opposite direction of which direction I need to be going. How am I? I'm lovely. How are you? Do we consider this? You're guessing. Gummy, I thought you had a hack. I've been following you blindly. I mean, is there? Well, no, that only works that way if you're holding in the right direction. Yeah, I'm gonna Google it. Give me a second. Okay, you're right. You're right. Shoot, and I lost where North was. I hate noon. I'm fighting this golem. He's going to keep me entertained. Come here. Today's gonna be a good day. I guarantee it. People are escaping. Who's escaping? What are you talking about? No one's allowed to escape. I feel it in your bones. I feel it in my tendon. I feel it in my bones. Yes, and yes, just there you go. Here's North. No, that's the thing. Even if we do escape, there are traps around the house. Upstairs, downstairs. There are traps outside of the house, and further into the surrounding woods. Trust me, I'll know when they try to escape. You can tell when you hear the crunch. East, west, north. Of course, Sarah. I'm glad I can be help. To be fair, I've also let people out. And then people brought back more people. And I'm like, yay, also social anxiety. Wait. That's why it's a good thing that this isn't a social situation. My normal laugh. I was born with an evil laugh. Oh, thank you. I might have seen your picture. I've recently been noticing people have been drawing pictures of me in comments, and I'm like, I didn't notice this. And then I get to see, I'm like, oh, sick. It's been very cool. It's been very fun. You haven't posted yours? Well, I'd love to see it when you do. Why? I like all art. The thing is, we all do improve our art over time. Art is incredible. And the amount of improvement I've seen in people has been astonishing. I mean, heck, Hank's been doing art for me for a while now. And within just a year's time, I've seen how incredible their art has gotten. It's very impressive. Yeah. Enjoy anime? You can still get better at anime. Anime's cool. Don't be nervous. I promise. Thank you, Gibbets. I promise I will never, ever hate anything anybody does. And I'll never speak bad about it, unless you draw me in fetish work. Fetish work would be the only thing that I'd be like, okay, what the heck? Why did somebody draw me with giant titties? Ooh, fortress. I also enjoy how I can relax. I was kidding. Can you imagine? Put myself to sleep. Oh, I actually wear earbuds. Need to practice sleeping on stream for donations for the donathon. Why would I need to practice? You just want to hear me sleep. You know, my camera can actually see my bed, so I could legitimately like lay in bed and it would still see me. Hunk shoe. I will most likely use a wireless mic. So that I can talk while in bed. There we go. Oh yeah, because like I will be making food on stream. You won't watch me make food. Cooking stream is a potential thing that will be unlocked later. Have you all seen the guy who was trying to beat Minecraft without moving? That was cool. I don't know if he managed it. I think he might have. Well, I'm glad I can help you. I do the same for anyone. Ow. Into the hole with you. Go. Go in your hole. We'll go deal with them later. I'm glad you think I'm the sweetest. The tower's cool. Is it not? It is so cool. Isn't it? That's the word I'm looking for. But isn't it and is it not? Would mean the same thing, but they sound like they mean different things. I hate the English language. There's something that somebody was doing, and I can't remember how it goes, but it's like ending a sentence with a contraction feels wrong, but it's still fine, you know? Like it's still the English language. Just sometimes it feels like no. Oh, where's the sun? Are you east? No, you're east. Okay. think a lot of VTubers get too snug in their niche. And that's why, I mean, I like doing them. I like being able to encourage people. But as long as you always remember, I'm just some guy on the internet. I can only say words to help. My brain, I've been so slow today, y'all. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Matt. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm mostly about myself. Like I preach, the stream would not exist without the streamer, and so the streamer needs to focus on their interest. But also, I like to focus on my community as a whole, instead of the individual. Yes. Even though words are all I can provide, I hope they do help those who need them. And back in the water we go. I'm the cornerstone. I don't want to be in the corner. How do I get like more in the center? Can I be the keystone instead? Thank you. No, the keystone's at the center of an archway. It is the last stone inserted, and it is what keeps the weight distributed properly. Apparently they used to test this by putting the person who constructed or designed the archway underneath it, then had people get on top of it, and if it crumbled, they would die. Oh, what'd you witness? Mark? I mean, if it's not stream appropriate, please don't say, but if it is something stream appropriate, that's fine. Remember to be considerate of others. Do I know what you mean, Kamiya? Do I really? But what'd you witness, man? One day I'll have moved far enough north. But that day is not. Still north, okay. Yes. Watch, I did something that rotates the map. Okay. Yeah, the ice is pretty but featureless. That's kind of cool though. Wow, crazy. Who was it? Who was it? Who said it? Who was it? What stream was it on? I Moo Moo. Who was it? Who said it? Oh, yeah, it's fine. Thank you. What stream was it on, though? Who was it? Whose stream was it on? Yeah. You're good. I know I'm not Eddie's favorite. Eddie has made that very clear. They are from the olden days. Of course, we always snitch on Eddie. I feel like that's been our running thing, that we always snitch on Eddie. Because Eddie's so snitchable. Was it the other one? Yeah. That's fine. It's a variant. Mushrooms. Totally appalling. Totally appalling. Yeah. I bet she's there right now. You know who else is there right now? Naptime is there right now. How dare you, Naptime? I see you two-timing. Oh, and Oshi is specifically a, and Oshi is a VTuber that you want to see succeed. You know, it's like one of the people you are rooting for. You know, like when you have your favorite bands, Oshis are your favorite VTubers. Your Kami Oshi is your all-time favorite VTuber. No, I'm laughing at Karmiya. I'm laughing at Karmiya. I was ignoring Karmiya. And and they're like, Karmiya demands fungus cows. Kamiya's just like, put the fungus cow in the boat. Put the fungus cow in the boat. We need fungus cow. Well, I'm glad to be a Kamiyoshi. And I know I'm not going to be everybody's all-time favorite. Might not even people's favorite. Some people might not like me. They might not like my content. And you know what? That is fine. You're allowed to... Kamiya won't get in the boat. I love wild mushrooms. Yes. Get in the water. Get in the water. Well, we'll have to figure that out next time. On Dragon Ball Z. Oh, idea. What if I were to... Bite the shit. Now we're gonna do... Mushroom. I got you. I will keep this boat forever now. This is gonna suck when I have to go back, y'all. We need to figure out a way to transport this boy. But for now, it's Betty by time. I don't have a bed. Where'd my bed go? I left my bed. We'll wait here until morning. Alright. Well, lovelies, it is time. It is time. It is time. Let's see if we can find somebody to raid out to. Yuki's live. Yuki is live. We're gonna try. I'm gonna check out somebody real quick, see what vibe they are. Is this? Nope. What about? Who are you? No, I guess we need to raid Yuki. Oh, they're doing gaming. Sweet. Okay. Y'all lovelies, we're gonna go raid Yuki. So y'all be very, very amazing. I appreciate y'all being here. It was a lot of fun. I'm gonna do a little EP raid, so give me a second while we do this. I also need to get a heart emote made. Exchanging of words. There you go. There's the EP raid. Thank you, Elliptical. Ellipticals is better. Grab it. Use the ellipticals. Okay. Ellipticals got it. All right, lovelies. We'll send you out in about 5, 4, 3, 2.